In this video, I'm going to take you through my 5 mistakes you do not want to be making when analysing the preceding information for the SBL exam ahead of the December 2024 exam sitting. My name is James, welcome back to my YouTube channel, where in this video I'm going to take you through my exclusive notes you can see above me, and if you'd like a copy of them yourself to download and follow through and make your own notes as well, click the link in the description of this video and you can have a copy yourself. I'm also delighted to say I'm affiliated and associated with Astranti, and you can access their mock papers, their pre-scene analysis pack, and this could be the difference in getting you that 50 plus to pass your examination. And for complete transparency, if you were to purchase any of those through the links, again, in the description of this video, I'd be entitled to a small percentage which goes to supporting the YouTube channel. But as always, massive thank you, and I hope the videos help. Let me know in the comments how you're getting on, because we're going to get stuck into it straight away now. Our tip number 1 for mistakes not to make ahead of your SBL exam, page 2 for your notes, and that is where we're coming on to the actual fee income now. This is really important. I'm going to put my mouse on the key paragraph. Now I'm just going to go through this nice and easy. So in 2003, revenue generated externally, we're given the figure there globally. It's been growing year on year, so this is fantastic news you could put down in terms of growth opportunities for Rodhim the company. But this is the bit, okay? So events management businesses charge between 35% and 40% of event ticket sales. So this is what I've got down in my notes, as we've got variable fees or variable fee income and fixed fee income. So then what we're looking for in fees for managing events, it's making it a financially lucrative and very competitive industry. In other words, it's a growing industry, it's getting larger and larger the next 5 years, more competition. What we have here now, corporate clients and small private events are normally charged a fixed fee negotiated in advance. Key thing for your notes, Rodhim operates with corporate clients and small private events on there. But the thing you've got to wrap your head around is that the corporate clients also have that variable aspect in terms of income. So what I interpret this as from ACCA on here is that we've actually got some fixed income with the corporate clients for those event ticket sales. On top of that, the charge of 35% to 40% on there. So if we come down to page 4 on here, you can see on my right hand side for the type of clients, I've got down here corporate clients when we charge that fixed fee plus the 35% to 40%, where if you look on the left hand side, we have music concerts, festivals, conferences. That's where they will also be entitled to a variable percentage return of the ticket sales. So the popular it is, the more return they're going to get. Whereas a private client, on the other hand, is a complete fixed fee. That is where it could be a wedding or something on those lines, and therefore it is not a recurring income. I mean, I put on my notes here, how many times does the same person get married? Because usually it should just be once on there. I'm not married, so I'm not a very good private client on there. The other interesting thing for fee income on here for the public sector clients is we're not actually told what their actual fee basis is. Now you could go on the assumption that we're going to have the same sort of fee basis that is variable with ticket sales. Maybe, as you can see on there, it includes government conferences, some major sporting events. So that's what it's likely to be in, but it doesn't specifically tell us in the pre-scene materials. If it was to be tested, I think they would go into more detail on it. So again, that is mistake area number 1, just to be aware about the fixed fees and the variable fees that the actual organisation for Rodhim would be entitled to. Number 2 for mistakes not to make now. We are coming on to the actual units for income and market share. This is where you've got to be super careful with the figures now. I touched on that global events figure, $1,960 billion. And this is where, if we come down to the next key figure for you to highlight down here, is the revenue generated by events in Haaland. So 2003, we have here $108 billion on there. Then from that, like we've just been touching on in terms of, well, we've got that fee income that they charge between 35 to 40%. That is where we have $39 billion on there. Again, we're working in the billions here globally and in Holland. I've given you some percentages at the bottom there, but the key thing where I think a mistake will come up in the exam is if you go then down to page 10 for Rodhim specific figures, and all it's going to take is a zero here and there just to get the figure wrong, is we've got the fee income for Rodhim, as you can see on the right hand side. In 2003, they had $780 million on there. Again, you've just got to be careful when inputting that in on your calculator. The same with the operating profit on the right-hand side. What's that? 36.6 I had it down as. I've put the percentage figures on the screen as well, so you can take them down. You haven't got time in the exam to be calculating them. If you've got the right requirements set, apply them, and the markers can absolutely love it. So just be careful with those millions and billions in case they throw up more figures on the exam day that you're going to have to interpret. Area number 3 now, where mistakes are definitely going to be made, is in cooperation and collaboration for Rodhim. And this is in terms of growth. Page 4 is where you want to be starting off on this. It's only a little paragraph. Again, I've got it on my screen above me, where my mouse is. And this is super interesting on here as to larger events management businesses, which is not Rodhim, they are not one of the larger ones on there, operates completely independently. Okay. However, smaller businesses such as Rodhim and the team within the industry sometimes informally cooperate and collaborate. So they work together, in other words, to compete against the larger firms. For each to actually strengthen, again, collective bargaining power position in the market. They can't compete against the big firms individually, so they go at it together. So for instance, an events management business specialising in managing events may refer to their clients with plans. And just on the right hand side here, this referral will be reciprocated in if the opportunity arose on there. So they'd sort of transfer sort of events and staff. It's good for the smaller firms to actually work together on there. But then there's one sentence, if you come all the way down to the actual organisers now, and not the organisers, it's the actual directors themselves. So Amanda and Safi, or should I say managing partners on there. And this is where they have it in their ethos on here as to, hang on, I've got the wrong page. This is what I mean, it's one line. Here we go. So where my mouse is, top of page 6, Rodhim does not have any formal or informal cooperation or collaboration arrangements in place with other businesses as the partners wish to preserve Rodhim's independence. Again, one sentence, so important. I put key paragraph on there because the smaller firms usually band together, tender against the larger companies, and they're deemed to be more successful. So again, cooperation, collaboration opportunities are out there for Rodhim, but Safi and Amanda have actually directly said on there that they have no arrangements in place, that they do not want to. They want to preserve Rodhim's independence. So again, that's another sort of thing for debate come the exam day, but I think it's going to be a mistake that people are just going to overlook and not put the two pieces of the puzzle together. So that's area number 3, cooperation and collaboration linking to growth and other external factors. Number 4 now, accountability of directors / managers of Rodhim. We're going to page 7 now. This is so you can see the organisational structure. And this is where there is going to be confusion, there are going to be mistakes made about these designated roles you can see down here. And you can see Jimmy, who is the qualified accountant in this, as you would expect. He does the financial controls, reporting, HR, but he's also got IT, development, analytics in there. So allocating skills and expertise, again, I think that is where we're going to have something come up, or people are going to get names mixed up on the exam day and refer to, say, Safi and Amanda being the ones accountable for it. But then you can see on there, it's working out which part of the process each individual is actually being accountable for. And if you want to go down to, say, the risk category register on the right hand side, I've noted down there which individual is accountable for which risk and for which area. That is definitely going to be one mistake in terms of it. And then finally on there, we've also got on here the actual environmental KPI factor, which is going to be a mistake where Technically speaking, you can see their non-financial KPI, environmental and sustainability measures, waste recycling, water consumption, energy efficiency. Nobody has that in the actual, from the partners or the managers in their roles. So again, something that I think you should be definitely having down in your notes, and making sure that on the exam day, top tip that I'd be thinking is, when you read the requirement and if it says something like project management, you go straight away, which managers does this refer to? And then, are they the experienced one? Are they settled in like Mirza? Are they the new graduate like Dika, inexperienced with a lot of responsibility? Or is it Jimmy, who's juggling lots of different roles and could quite easily make mistakes on there, especially when they've got 34 full-time employees and other temporary staff that they need to balance and manage on there. So number 4 area where mistakes are going to be made, accountability of the directors and managers and the allocation of roles. Number 5 now, last but by no means least, ethics and professional skills. And I actually think this is going to be a huge mistake coming up on the exam, because when I've been through, and if you've watched all the videos on the channel, there isn't actually that much on ethics at all. I've put down the code on here because they love to test it, and they will test it on the SBL exam. I think it could be one of those things that might crop up on the exam day, but you've got to take the area of the code of ethics and apply it to the scenario. So pick out one of the 5, integrity, objectivity, and the rest. And then on the left-hand side, professional skills, analysis, commercial acumen, communication, evaluation, and skepticism. And this is where you need to embed this in your answer. And that's why from the accountability, the cooperation points, the collaboration, that's me questioning and challenging the scenario and the actual case study to say, hang on a second, is this correct, what's going on? And that's what you've got to demonstrate when it comes to your examination on there. In terms of an ethics style, hints and areas that we've been given so far and how it could link into other areas, I'm going back down to page 7 now in terms of the employees and the structure of the business. There could be things like trade unions or something going wrong individually or in the partnership that has led to a breach of ethics potentially on there. Again, we've only been given sort of like little hints and tips, but it's sort of, Rodhim is employing all these temporary staff members. Maybe there could be new information on the exam day to do with this. And last but by no means least, I'm coming down to the extract from the website on here. And this sort of links back into the areas of ethics, professional skills, and also allocating of roles, where from an ethics point of view, to encourage open, respectful and ethical business culture. So I'm saying that's a strategic aim of the business, and we haven't been given much on it at all. Could be something that could come up, but it's just making sure that you refer to it as one of their, they've only got 4 strategic aims, so make sure you've got that down on there. And as we touched on before about accountability and not having a member of the team who's allocated those sustainability roles, environmentally sustainable manner is a strategic aim, but we haven't allocated the responsibility of that to a job profile on there. So look through it all. Those are my sort of ethics and professional skills to challenge what they've given us in the actual scenario. And if you apply these notes we've gone through in today's video, along with those 5 key mistake areas not to make, I think you've got a very good chance of passing your SBL exam. Well, that takes you through all of the insights from this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, so be sure to give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the other videos on the channel. As I said, if you'd like access to these notes to download them yourself, click the link in the description, and also check out those Astranti pre-seen packs and mock papers. They could definitely be the difference in getting you those extra marks working on your exam technique. So what I'll do for you now is, guys, I'll leave you another video up at the top. I'll see you on the other side for another analysis, and thank you very much.